Hey guys, how's it going?
Is that a trick, Yo-Yo?
Why isn't my yo-yo coming back up?
Can you walk the dog? The Offset Yo-Yo Podcast.
Hey guys, how's it going? So, this is the very first episode of the Offset Yo-Yo Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Vu, two-time Australian national yo-yo champion and Yoyoing YouTuber. So, this is going to be an experiment. I'm not sure whether this is going to work or not, but I'm going to make 6 episodes, and then we'll reevaluate from there. If you guys absolutely hate it after the 6 episodes, I'll stop. If you guys absolutely love it, I'll keep going, but 6 episodes are happening regardless. So, a question you guys are probably asking is, why have you decided to start a podcast? And I generally just love consuming content via audio. I listened to audiobooks. I have been doing so since I was 14 to 15. And since I've started working, I have stopped watching a lot of videos and I have opted in to listen to more podcasts. So I thought, why not make another yo-yoing podcast, interview the best and brightest in the yo-yoing world, and allow you guys to tune into something while you're driving to work, doing the dishes, or even yo-yoing. So this is my go at creating another form of content that you guys would ultimately find useful. So, with the context wrapped up, who are we interviewing today? Today, we are interviewing none other than Jeffrey Pang. Jeffrey Pang is probably one of the most prolific and prominent yo-yo designers in today's current landscape. He has worked with many big brands such as Magic Yo-Yo, Recess, countless more. He has his own brand called Luftwerk, where he specializes in high-end Titanium Yoyos. He has been the mastermind behind the Skyva, a finger spin plastic yo that I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with. And just recently, me, Magic Yo-Yo, and Jeff have worked together to bring you guys the variant. That is basically a plastic yo-yo that is perfect in my eyes, 100%. So this is the context behind everything. So throughout this conversation, me, Jeff, we discuss everything from yo-yo design to company branding to logistics to plastic yo-yos to the ultimate production of the Skyva and what it was like working on the variant and giving you guys a front row seat to an otherwise pretty obscure part of yo-yoing. So, without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy the wide-ranging conversation between me and Jeff. So, hello Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. It's going great. So, this is the first episode I've ever decided to do. So, yeah, you are the first guest.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, hopefully this doesn't crash and burn too badly. But yeah, so I guess just in like recent years, you've probably been known as like one of the most prominent kind of yo-yo designers in the yo-yoing space, I guess. And, you know, with everything you do with like high-end titaniums at Luftwerk and, you know, your like line of killer plastics. So I kind of just wanted to ask as a first question, how did you transition from being a yo-yo player to ultimately a designer?
That's actually a really good question. And first of all, like that, when I was really young, I wasn't like, I yo-yoed a lot, but I wouldn't say I was really good. Like, I think there's a lot of people out there that, you know, you practice a lot, right? And
yeah,
and like for me, like I think I got to a level where I was like good, but how to explain it? Like, I think there's 2 types of yo-yo players. There's some that are like really into tricks, and some people are really into the yo-yos, right? Like,
yeah,
you kind of, right? There's a lot of collectors and there's a lot of like yo-yo players, right? And sorry, I'm getting some messages. I don't know if you can hear that, but
no, that's fine.
I want to try to control this. But yeah, so as far as yo-yo design goes, that kind of was more about how I started, because I back then yo-yos were not very good, so a lot of people would modify them, right? And
just as like a rough time frame, when did you kind of get into the whole game?
Big yo-yo and on the way on it and like modify it, right? To the point where I got so good at it, people were like kind of like paying me for it. And like, it wasn't a lot, but you know, I was like a kid back then. I think I was like 16 or, you know, 17. And I remember I got this little tiny tag lathe and I would just like, you know, cut up yo-yos and throw parts on them and see how it would play. Right. And I think not knowingly back then, like I learned so much from that, because nowadays when I'm designing a yo-yo, I can be like, oh, okay, well, if I want a yo-yo to play, if I want a yo-yo to feel, I don't know, like more floaty or more solid or more, you know, more rim weighted or really fast, right? Like I kind of understand those things based on back when I was modding when I was a kid, because like I would throw on these weight rings in different areas of the yo-yos and I'd be like, oh, it makes it play this way. And I would kind of like, I learned all those things pretty early on. And then when I started designing yo-yos, it really translated well with it, because like, I mean, like a prototype costs so much. Yeah. To get it to kind of like have that knowledge beforehand is really helpful, because you can be like, okay, well, you know, if you put weight here, it's probably going to feel like this, right? And then when you get the prototype, then it's just like small tweaks, right? So
yeah, exactly.
So I hopefully that kind of like answered your question. Like I guess like I started out kind of playing with yo-yos, and then I think like after like 2 years, I started modifying them a lot, and then like that kind of like inspired me to keep going with like kind of like it's like both being a player and a collector of yo-yos as well. So yeah, that helped a lot with transitioning from that. Like it wasn't like an active thing, but yeah, it's something that like happened. I don't know, like it just kind of was very fitting, I guess. Yeah, something that you can kind of like look back on in retrospect, I guess. Yeah, like it kind of like it, like looking back at it, I was like, oh, well, that totally makes sense. But if you were to tell me when I was like 16 or, you know, in my parents' basement machining yo-yos, saying that, oh, you'll have like a, you know, relatively successful company that designs yo-yos, you'll be designing plastic yo-yos, I'd be like, what the heck? Like that's crazy. Like that's so far fetched, right? Yeah, yeah. But, yeah, and like I think it's just funny because back then yo-yos were terrible. Like they were horrible. Like you probably remember, like you're a pretty old school player, so you probably remember like, you know, the first yo-yos that you ever had. Like they just weren't very good. Yeah. Nowadays you can off the shelf and you can keep, you know, bust out your hardest combo and it'll just kill it, right? Yeah. Like back there was a time when that was not the case. No, there was definitely a time where like you had to be very selective with the yo-yos you bought, and sometimes you get a good one, sometimes you wouldn't, and yeah, it's almost weird because as yo-yos progress and they kind of are like off the shelf or out of the package, ready to go, I find that the less people know about modding. Because it's interesting, when I was in Singapore, all I was doing was I just was cleaning my own bearings, and I was just, just cleaning the bearings, de-shielding it, putting it in the ladder fluid, putting in the lube, and the young guns who were around me then were like, how do you know how to do all this? And I'm like, well, back in my day, we had to buy like $30 bearings, and if that screwed up, that was heart-wrenching. So yeah, I remember that. Yeah, de-shielding or like making your own concave bearings with a Dremel. Like I remember doing all these things. I was never that hardcore. Like I got into it relatively like 2009. That's when I got into it. Okay. So it was definitely starting to pick up. But I still have like rudimentary your maintenance skills. That's good though. I mean, like nowadays, like I have a sleeve of bearings, and I think you can get them for like $1 each or $2 each. You buy them or whatever, right? So like nowadays, it's like they're replaceable. But back then, it's almost disposable. It's like $10 a bearing. Like what the heck? Anyway, so kind of just going back to what you were saying. Obviously, you got into yo-yo design through the modification process of yo-yos. And just to kind of dig into that a little bit deeper, were there any mods or modifications, for those of you guys who don't know the lexicon, that helped you more than others? So, for instance, to give you an example, like I can re-silicone a yo-yo and, maybe satin finish something if I really wanted to, but that doesn't really translate to me understanding how the weight distribution would work. So were there any mods in particular that helped you understand the just design process better? Yeah, I think anything to do with like rings. Because I think back then it was really common to, for example, like a freehand zero, you would recess a ring into it and then throw on like a silicone recess as well. Yeah. Or like you would pop in the rings and then do a silicone recess, and that would like transform the yo-yo so much. And then like you would just anything with like, I think like rings, because rings are so literally adding weight to a very like a focus point of the yo-yo, and it kind of changes the feel a lot that way. So or anything with like caps, like if you were to modify a yo-yo and put caps on it, it changes it so much. And like it also changes the entire weight of the yo-yo, right? So a lot of those things, like once you add a ring onto anything, it just became so much more stable. But then you would also lose that feeling of like, I guess float is what people like to call it. Like a lot of the old yo-yo jams, if you just throw them right out of the box, like you take off the caps and then you like a kickside or a Olympia. I don't know if people remember those yo-yos.
Yeah,
but,
God.
like, they would feel very like light and like maneuverable and like floaty, but then it would lack stability.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
When you put a big fat like a brass ring or something, it would become way more stable, but then you'd lose that kind of floaty fun feel of it, right? So like the really good example of that is like when I was designing the Skyva, like I really wanted to be a fun yo-yo, right? Because it looks like it's a fun yo-yo. I didn't want it to, but I didn't want it to be like too like I didn't want it to sacrifice performance too much. So you had to like kind of all those lines and where you place the weight and like how you design it, right? So yeah, like I would say ring modifications is like easily the most that taught me the most, I guess.
Just kind of like I heard you mention it in passing, but you briefly mentioned that you had a lathe in your parents' basement. And like, how did that? Because I guess I've seen lathes in like, I don't know, school and woodwork, but I've never really used one offhand. So how would you say?
No, the one that you're probably thinking of is like the massive industrial style, like the big lathes. The one I had was more for like smaller parts. It's like a hobby lathe. Like literally, it's like the size, like I mean, it's like the size of a stove desktop, kind of like it's very small. Like couldn't do very much with it, put it that way. Like I feel like a yo-yo, the size of a yo-yo is like the maximum size it would hold. It was like maybe like 14 inches long and very small, but it was enough to do yo-yos, and that's all I really used it for. So yeah.
And I guess that was how you did you like recess yo-yos and like kind of use that to put rings into things?
Yep. I did everything on that. I used that in a combination of like a drill and I can't remember what I used. Like it was like a drill and like a cutting tool. A lot of the old school guys did it, like Skip. I don't know if you remember. He used to model. We would used to like message on the chats and stuff. Like I think this was even probably before Facebook and stuff. So,
on the forums and
on the forums and stuff. Yeah, so we would always like share each other's like tips and tricks on how we were doing things, and it's kind of fun.
That's really interesting because I think back to what you were saying before, you really kind of have these two players who are like interested in the tricks or interested in the yo-yos. And every now and then I'd fool myself into being very interested in the yo-yos, and I've got no design skills whatsoever. And every time I tried to mod a yo-yo, it would go horribly wrong. And I remember trying to like silicon recess a freehand zero, and it completely destroyed it. So trust me, I've destroyed my fair share of those. Like a lot of them have went catastrophically wrong, especially in the beginning. Like there would be so many things that would go wrong. So you had to get through that phase where you're just destroying a bunch of stuff. Yeah, I guess it's the price you pay for tinkering around with it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So another question I kind of really wanted to ask you is, one of the biggest obstacles to yo-yo design, at least initially, in my opinion, is CAD experience or computer aided design experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to know, like, how did you go about learning CAD, and how did you learn about it specific to yo-yoing, I suppose? Because you could find CAD tutorials on most things, but not a whole lot on yo-yos. So how would you, kind of dive into that?
I think to me, that's not the challenging part with designing yo-yos. The CAD is, like, I've always been a pretty like technical person.
Yeah,
like, I always,
of course,
like technical stuff, like cars and stuff. So like with CAD, I did a bunch of like, if you're asking like, someone has no experience and they want to learn how to do CAD,
Yeah.
I think the best way is just to grind out some YouTube tutorials. There's tons of tutorials online. Like you can like, there's nothing yo-yo specific, but at the same time, like a yo-yo is like one of the easiest things to design. Like I think,
okay,
like compared to like, I've done like really complicated like moving parts or like engine stuff and like or like more organic stuff. That's when it gets really difficult. Like a yo-yo is just like a drawing that's revolved, right? There's not I wouldn't call it difficult at all.
Sure.
But I think the difficult part is really like when you get into the manufacturing stages of stuff, and then
and we can talk about that a little bit later on, but
yeah, for sure, yeah. So
but, that's okay.
Yeah, if anyone wants to do CAD stuff, like honestly, grind out tutorials. It's not very difficult. Like I use SolidWorks. I know other people in the industry use different tools like AutoCAD or whatever, but there's tons of resources on to learn those programs.
Out of curiosity, what CAD software do you use to design yo-yos, and have you like changed that?
I primarily use SolidWorks.
SolidWorks, yeah.
Yeah.
And has all the yo-yos you've designed been on SolidWorks?
Good question. Let me think. I think except for I think Skyva was like a combination of SolidWorks and AutoCAD. Okay. So the mold had to be tweaked in AutoCAD.
Oh,
but
okay.
That was a very special case, right? Because it's plastic.
Sure.
So
yeah. Okay.
With everything else I do, I really like AutoCAD, or I really like SolidWorks. It's just feels like home to me. I've used other things like Cement, like NX, and a bit of AutoCAD as well, but I've always just found SolidWorks to be way more visual.
Okay.
All the other ones are numerical based.
Right. So. Okay. Sure. So just kind of going a little bit deeper in, most people associate you with the brand Luftwerk. Am I pronouncing that correctly? And I think a question that I was kind of curious about is that why did you decide on high-end titanium yo-yos as your niche as opposed to something else?
Well, it's really funny because I think when I started it, it was never supposed to be a company. Like I just did it. There's supposed to be one yo-yo that I really wanted. It was the Evora. Yeah. And like I look at that yo-yo now as like I don't know, like some sort of like stepping stone. Like I don't know, I like romanticize that yo-yo a lot. But like it was almost like a turning point where I was like, oh, I really want to make this happen as just something for me, like, just as a yo-yo for myself. And it just happened to blow up, and everyone happened to just absolutely love that yo-yo so much. And, like after that I think it sold out in like less than an hour or something ridiculous. Yeah. And then, then I was like, oh shoot, like these, people are actually like this stuff. Cause my impression was like, no one's doing high-end stuff. No one's really doing titanium stuff. Well, there's clearly not really demand for it. So maybe I'll just try this one run. Yeah. Right. And it was funny because I think One Drop was releasing the Citizen, and then Yoyo Factory was releasing the Dream.
Yeah. That was kind of like that titanium phase for a lot of companies, I remember. Exactly.
Yeah. And like, it was exciting. It was like everyone was, really excited about all those things. Right. And like, but the reality of it is that titanium has like way smaller profit margins than aluminum. Yeah. You have way more B grades. It's so expensive to do anything in titanium. No companies, I think no company that's doing aluminum would want to even try to do titanium because they're just not used to it. And they'd be like, oh my gosh, like this is like, it's bad on all fronts, right? It's more expensive. There's less customers. There's less profit margin. Like everything is bad for it, right?
Yeah. 100%.
And the only way I make it work is that like I direct sale everything so that I can, like keep the cost at what I'm selling them for.
100%.
But I can totally understand why a bigger company that's already making money off of, I don't know, aluminums or like, anything else, like the titanium is not a smart thing to go into. But definitely like a labor of love. Like I like it. I love the material, and it's just really cool. Nothing really plays like it. So
Yeah. I think there's a certain I don't know if this is the right word for it, but like a vibe to Titanium Yoyos that just makes them feel very different. Very like they do feel different, and
they do. Yeah, they have like more ringy, like
that metallic ding. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, they definitely do. Yeah, so if I have any like B grades or anything, I'll have to send some stuff to
you. Sweet. I would be more than happy to try them out. So I think something that we kind of touched on while we were speaking in China was you have a very clear I'd almost say kind of like branding and tone of voice kind of guideline for your company. And I thought that was something that was really insightful to kind of hear about. So could you kind of explain that or go into that a bit more and ultimately your thought process behind that?
Yeah. Like for me personally, I think brand consistency is it's really important, but also something that's really challenging too. Like something like Luftwerk, I guess like that's an easy one to go into is that so like it's obviously a very high end product, but I always try to convey a sense of class mixed with nostalgia. And those are like two things that I really like. I don't know, like me personally, it hits me on an emotional level. That's like, wow, like I would be stoked to be buying these products, right?
Yeah.
So like I think that's one of the things that I design around a lot of, and it gets hard when you're trying to design something that's very, very like competition focused. So in my pipeline, I have the slim line coming up, and then I have a competition. I'm going back to like trying to like do kind of more like remember the Phobia series is very like competition oriented. I want to do something like that, but then trying to create that nostalgic feel with that is harder.
100%.
But I still try to like I'm pretty strict with not doing something that's like so outlandishly like it would just stick out a lot, I guess. I don't know. That's not to say I'm not willing to like try new things and stuff. But I think with that brand, I'm pretty careful about what I release or how I'm designing stuff. Something like the Skyva, the language with that was like more like something that could be that's like very very, I don't even know how to explain it. Like it would be something like kind of like expensive or premium, but it's fun. Right. Like I think that was like the feeling I tried to convey with that kind of stuff. And you just try to be very, if you're more consistent with that, I feel like customers kind of know what to expect. They are more 100%. Comfortable with sticking with the brand because they know what to expect. Right. If you're building a brand and you're releasing like, oh, here's a super serious competition yo-yo, and then, oh, here's something that's like fun and not focused at all, and then it's like all over the place. Like I'm sure some companies can make it work, but just like for me personally, I think it's more, I don't know, it's harder to keep it consistent and control everything. So that's just me personally though.
No, 100%. I remember I was reading I think it's the 22 Immutable Laws of Branding, something like that. And it really kind of struck a chord because like when you think Luftwerk, you think high-end titanium, and you immediately associate it with this kind of the niche that it's in, right? But when you think of and they're doing really well, but like let's see like Yoyo Factory, right? You're not really sure like what they've got, the titaniums, they've got the plastics, they've got the metals. You just kind of think yo-yos, and it's a bit fuzzy and unclear. So but even with other kind of like really nuanced strategies, I remember you were telling me that Luftwerk has it's a specific font and like a specific naming convention and almost like colors that you use. So it's super specific. It's
very specific. Yeah. Like that to me is more like I don't know. Just the brand consistency is really important to me. Like, like one thing that I I really like is when, let's say you bought a yo-yo from me a year ago, and then you decide to pick up a yo-yo now, I would want them to sit together in a case and look good together. Like, I think that's pretty important.
Okay.
So, I don't know why that's a thing for me, but like, I think that's me being like, cause I used to, I still do collect a lot of yo-yos, and I would always collect yo-yos that kind of look good together, or like, just like, you know, sitting in my case, I'm like, oh damn, like I'm pretty proud of my collection. And I think, you know, when you're purchasing a bunch of like Luftwerk products, like if you had 3 of them, they would all look together, or at least like, you know, share some sort of like brand language that when you look at it, you're like, oh, that's definitely something Jeff designed. Like, you know, like unmistakably. So, again, these aren't rules, I would say. It's not better or worse. It's just how I do things, and they seem to work.
Sure.
Clearly other companies have way different designs, like way different niches. Like I see all sorts of companies that are very successful. They're doing other things with yo-yo design, and they're killing it too. And they're just doing it differently. Right. I mean, how I do.
Yeah. And I guess like, you know, there's a million ways to do it. Right. But, in terms of how you do it, I think it's undeniable that there's a sense of a class and a sense of consistency that is, that's really useful. So I guess kind of like looking back, and I guess a question that I kind of want to ask from here is that, it's kind of like a chicken and an egg. Do you think of the brand image first and then design the product around that? Or do you get the product and you're like, okay, the product kind of has this kind of vibe, and then you go in and create the tone of voice and the like?
I think probably the first one so, but it always morphs as I'm designing stuff. So like usually I'll think of something like I keep it all in my head, like with a pipeline for yo-yo designs and Luftwerk. Like I already know what I'm going to design 2 yo-yos ahead. So I already know what I'm releasing the next run and the one after.
Sure.
Roughly.
Yeah. And
sometimes it changes, sometimes it doesn't, but depends on how I feel, if I get a different idea. But like it's definitely more, I think of the design in my head first. Yeah. And how it's going to look, how I want it to feel, and how I'm feeling a lot of the times. And like, honestly, I don't even know if any of this translates through, because like, a lot of the yo-yos that I'm designing are like, they reflect a lot of my personal life and like how I'm feeling at that moment. Sure. Like it's crazy. And it's like, I can look at any of my yo-yos I've designed and it takes me back to a specific feeling and place. And I have no idea. I have no idea if this or happen anyone else. But for me, when I look at a bronze Octavia, like I think of Spain. And like traveling to Spain with my girlfriend at the time, and like going through the I believe it was like Canary Islands, and it was incredible. Yeah. Or like if you name any of them, Fulvia, I was, you know, in Ontario in the wintertime in the snow, and like I have all these photos of, you know, us, you know, walking through the forest and taking photos and stuff. Like every yo-yo has its like story to me, I guess.
Yeah. And, yeah. That's really interesting you'd mention that, actually, because I don't know, for me, the story is always very inconsistent and it's a complete mess that can only be looked at through retrospect. So I don't know. Yeah. It's
you're talking about your personal life or what?
No. I'm just like for instance, with like the offset outlier or whatever, that started a year ago, and then it had to go through so many hoops, so many iterations, and it's like, for me personally, it's like I couldn't find an overarching theme. But if I was to say, I don't know, look back on that yo-yo, I kind of look back and then you can kind of see it, connect the dots.
Yeah,
like
definitely. Yeah, definitely like that. I mean, I look at when I write those blog posts, it's like I look at them and it's crazy how far things have come since then. Yeah. But yeah, it's just more about like how I feel at that moment. Like it's usually I'm usually really stressed out when I'm doing a yo-yo release or something's going weird with my life, or I don't know. just
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff. But it's definitely something that, going back to your original question, like the design, the feeling, everything comes, I think, before, like way before, even when I open up SolidWorks and put a line down.
Sure.
So,
okay. All right. Well, now I just kind of like to switch gears and ask more about, I guess, the Skyva and how that came to be. So obviously the Skyva was a huge hit, probably one of the most popular plastic yo-yos definitely of my time. And like, what was the process like? Did Magic Yo-Yo approach you? Did can you just talk us through that entire process of the Skyva?
Sure. Yeah. When I was living in Prague, spent like seven or 8 months there. And I was working on Luftwerk stuff. I was designing. I did like some work for Recess and the first base and stuff, right?
Okay.
And that's a sweet yo-yo. I love that. And I'm glad it's really successful. And like I remember playing with one of the prototypes, and the prototypes didn't have as much of if you look at a first base, there's like a very flat area for
very
artwork,
flat
right?
hub.
But the prototypes actually didn't have that flat area. It was just like a bowl, just like a straight bowl. And eventually it was like too light, so they added that extra weight there.
Yeah.
But with that prototype, I would always do finger spins, and it would always kind of wander around my finger. And I just thought it was fun. Like I was just like, oh, it's just wandering around on my finger on my nail, right?
Yeah.
And then I would find it and throw it back in. And I would always do that. Like that was just like, I was just carrying that yo-yo around a lot. And then Magic Yo-Yo saw what I was doing with Luftwerk and with, little like helping out with Recess and stuff at the time. And they were like, hey, like, do you think you would ever want to design a plastic yo-yo with us? Because we want to release something. And I was like, well, sure. Like I would try it. Like why not? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was kind of hesitant at the time because I was pretty busy and I was traveling a lot. All this stuff was going on. But yeah, it just started playing around with designs and stuff. And I remember one of the things was like, I wonder like if I could make my finger stay in the middle instead of wandering around like the first bit. And that's literally how I thought of like the dimple thing. But I mean, like, I'm not going to claim the design was mine, because like later I actually found out that I remembered what was like a Yo-Yo Jam had the lateral caps or whatever.
I remember those.
And even going back as far as I don't know if you remember the Myrock Air Rider. Is that before your time?
That was way before my time.
I think that's like 2005 or something.
Gosh,
but that had
I was
finger spin dimple. Like it was crazy. And they advertised it. They called it Matador style. So it's completely different back then. But people weren't ready for it. Like everyone was still obsessed with thumb grinds back then.
Yeah.
So thumb grind days. And then it was like hub stacks, and then it was finger spins. So that's kind of how it came. And then after I left Prague, I went directly to China to work on a bunch of stuff, mainly the Skyva project. And after that, after I stayed there, I was tweaking the designs and stuff. And, I didn't expect it to blow up the way it did, but it just like, I don't know. It just made sense because no one else was really doing a finger spin yo-yo that was like I don't know. Like I think there was a lot of really cool finger spin dimple designs. Yeah. Specifically, like one I like the most. I don't know if you know this yo-yo, but General Yo, they had this one yo-yo that had like this like a ring and a spike in the middle. It was crazy, and it's like the coolest thing ever. It's like a nub with a ring around, like a raised ring cup around it. So your finger would only touch like the edge of the cup and like the spiky little point in the middle. I don't know. It was crazy. I don't know what yo-yo was.
Was that the? I remember playing with something similar. Maybe it was called like the Elysium or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. That might be it, but I just know it was a General yo-yo because I saw it at Nationals and Ernie showed it to me. I think that's his name. He showed it to me in person, and I was like, dude, this is sick. Like, this is so cool. But it's like, it's not, I didn't think it was as effective as a Skyva solution, but it was a very cool, like it was way cooler. It was like, oh dang, that's like innovative, I guess.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it came to be. Like, I didn't expect it to blow up that much. I thought maybe we'll sell, like the first run, and then it'll be good. And then I think at the time everyone needed that. Like they needed a cheap yo-yo. Finger spins were blowing up, and then it's pretty much what happened.
Yeah, so. That's super interesting. Because I remember very early on, and I think it was either you or Shadow who reached out to me, and I think I tried kind of like the Skyva just before it was about to be released, and I remember everyone was going crazy about it, myself included. Like it was such a distinct yo-yo for the time. It kind of just like the wave of finger spins was coming, and somebody needed to create the plastic, and the Skyva was the first kind of one there.
Crazy. Yeah, I honestly don't even know how that happened, and like I don't know. It was so nuts. Like I still am blown away. Like what? Like how the heck did that happen? Like it's just like so weird to me. Like I don't even know. Like I look back at it, and I'm like, man, like it'd be so cool to be able to like do something like that again. But I don't know. It was just honestly, I think of it as more luck than anything, because it was just the perfect time, right place, right time.
Yeah.
I just did the right thing. I don't know. Like I did the right thing, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
no idea.
I feel as if there's always elements of luck, but like, if you kind of look back on your story, it's like you've been designing and modding yo-yo since you were like 16, 18. So you know how to design a good yo-yo, and then you've been doing all the Luftwerk stuff. So you've had established, systems in place to do the business. So like when the time came, you were ready to ride the wave, and I feel as if that's a lot of,
I don't know. I still think of a lot of it. I mean, they say like luck is opportunity meets preparation. So
definitely.
It's right there. So I don't know.
All right. Well, I guess so. The Skyva was a huge success, and I guess when I wanted to kind of make my own plastic yo-yo, I didn't think that I was capable of creating something that I'd be genuinely proud of. So that's when me and Shadow ultimately reached out to you to work on the variant almost.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of curious as to like what were like the Skyva was a very kind of, I guess, creative process, and how was like working on the variant, which you were like critical in designing, like how was that different from the Skyva?
Yeah. So with the variant, it's more of like, I think, so when I design yo-yos for customers, I tend to, it's less of a creative process and more of like almost like a humanities project. Like it's more like, like trying to figure out what whoever is asking me to design something actually want, right?
Sure. Yeah.
A lot of the times someone could reach out to me and say, hey, we just want something designed that it's like, it's completely up to you and we trust you. Yeah. And that's happened before, but more often than not, they have a voice and what they actually want. They just don't have the technical abilities or, the understanding to do it. Right. So a lot of the times, like for the variant, for example, it's like, I would never like take credit for that design, I would say, because a lot of it was more like your voice. Like you were like, kind of like, oh, like I like this yo-yo and I like that yo-yo. I like these profiles. I like this. And to me, I just try in SolidWorks, I would try to match those up as best as possible, and then making it aesthetically pleasing to me.
Yeah,
and then hope you would feel the same way, right?
Yeah.
So I think the challenges are much different. Like they're, I wouldn't say they're harder or easier. I think they're just different. Like for example, the Skyva was like, okay, what do I like? What do I think is good, right? Like just do it, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So the part of making it, what actually looks good to me is the easy part, and the doing it is maybe the harder part in that aspect. But like, when you're working with someone, you have to make sure that it's their design, it's their vision, and you don't like you don't override that. That's really important to me, right? So
I think I definitely really enjoyed working with you on the variant project, because you were always there to kind of put in an insight when needed,
Yeah.
but also very quick to kind of step out of the way and be like, well, what do you ultimately want with this? And I think, something that was pretty important in the whole variant process, I guess, was like you would always be like, so what kind of yo-yos do you like? And you would break it down to like this yo-yo plays like this because. So for instance, you were like, well, you see the Skyva plays like this because it's got the such and such rim weight, and it kind of helps, I guess, embed some of that design knowledge that you have to others. Which kind of takes me to my next point. A lot of people have experience making aluminium yo-yos. And aluminium yo-yos are great, and they're the competition standard right now. But if you were to look at a CAD drawing, or even cut a aluminium yo-yo in half and cut a plastic yo-yo in half, the design process is almost like completely different.
Yeah,
it's almost like a completely different game, and the standard rule book for metal yo-yos is make the body thin and beef up the rim weight while keeping it light. Whereas with plastic, it differs a little bit. So what would you say is the biggest challenge designing plastic yo-yos that differs with aluminium yo-yos or titanium yo-yos?
It differs. It's a funny question because it actually has the biggest, I don't know, like the biggest actual challenge for making a plastic, like a injection molded yo-yo, has nothing to do with how it plays or the design process. It's actually like, can it be made? Because it's not being machined. There's a $10,000 mold that has to be made for it.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Making sure that this yo-yo will eject properly out of this mold is more important to me than that's the number one goal, right?
Exactly.
Like, can this thing be made, right? And that's actually a lot of the challenges I face. It's not how can I make it play like this anymore, because that's like, I think, I guess like I've become more experienced enough where that's not that much of a challenge. Like I can generally figure it out, but I guess more of what you were asking, the challenges between the difference between aluminum and plastic is that like aluminum is so much more dense, so you can like a V-shaped plastic yo-yo will never play like a aluminum V-shaped yo-yo. A V-shaped yo-yo for aluminum, you can really target it all on the edge, versus a plastic is so light, you can't actually throw all that rim weight on the edge. Like we did do that with the variant.
I distinctly remember
success, I would say, but if you actually look at the side of it, you would see how much plastic is on the it's kind of like we try to put it all on the edge, but because plastic is so light, like it's not as dense as aluminum, you see like this big fat lip, and a lot of that weight is kind of like closer to the middle than if it was an aluminum yo. I don't know if you know if you can visualize that, but
I definitely
that doesn't mean it doesn't play good. Like it's gonna have a lot more rim weight than if you just did any other plastic design. But like that specifically is a big challenge. Like plastic yo-yos are more optimized for organic shapes. So things like the Skyva is not really ideal. Like things like the variant is again like it's going to be an awesome yo-yo. But it's like plastic seem to be more suited for like rounded shapes.
100%.
Not saying that it's bad or good, but like it's easier to design.
It's easier to design.
That's an organic shape than it is a V shape. V shapes are more difficult to design for sure.
And I 100% understand everything you're saying. As the guy who was kind of like hand in hand in the project, it was almost like you could see the shape evolve from like this perfect V cut shape to slightly more rounded. And I feel as if by the end of it, it still is a very angular yo-yo. And
for sure.
we obviously like tried to keep to the original design as much as possible, but it's just that act of translating what you want in a metal yo-yo and then into plastic is almost kind of like a different language, and there's different ways to get there.
Like I almost like, I think I know what you were trying to do. Like you wanted it to play like how it looked, but when we actually made it, it doesn't play at all how it looks.
Exactly. The
first iteration of it didn't like, and I think there was no way for me to like show you that unless we like made it, and then I was like, okay, like can't make it like this, but it's not going to play how you want it. Like
exactly.
You actually wanted to play how like a more organic shape play yo-yo, plastic yo-yo played, but yeah, like that. Those are the challenges. Yeah, the plastic is not.
In terms of like yo-yo design hacks, something that you told me very early on was that, well, we can't create the rim weight or the weight distribution you're looking for because plastic is lighter than metal, and we would just have to chuck so much weight on the rims. But what we did as kind of a proxy was we really notched up the diameter of the yo-yo. So the variant ended up coming at like, I think it was something around, it's almost, I think it's like 59 millimeters. So it's a pretty big, hefty yo-yo. Yep. And that was one of the ways where we could kind of bridge the gap.
A Skyva is 50. A Skyva is 58, I think. 57.5.
Exactly.
So like all plastic yo-yos are. I think the cheat, if you actually want to know the cheat, is if you want to make a good plastic yo-yo, make it big.
Make it big, yeah.
If you look at like the Yeti. The Yeti is like what 62 or 63 or something, right? It's almost like the borderline off-string yo-yo or something, right? Yeah. But it plays phenomenal. It's like way more stable. And with aluminum yo-yo, you can't actually do that. So that is an advantage with a yo-yo. If you want a plastic yo-yo,
so if you want a plastic yo-yo that has all the weight distribution whistles, make it big.
Yeah, literally, make it big, and you'll have less vibration issues. So, win-win.
Yeah. Has Shadow sent you a variant yet?
Me personally, no. I've just been going off the word, whatever you've been.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, we've got to fix that. Definitely it would be cool to kind of get your insights on it and see like the final product of what you helped to build, because ultimately the CAD designs was 100% you. So every time I was like, I want this, you were the guy to do it. So I think you are an integral part of the project.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think it's like it would have been more. It's more important for you to know how to like. It's more important for you to like how it plays, because in the end, it's kind of your vision and your design.
Exactly.
So, versus like it's it would be nice to feel it and see, but I have a good idea of how it plays, so just based on experience.
Well, I mean, we'll definitely get one shipped to you as soon as possible, and maybe we can go ahead and talk about that and what you would change. But so currently right now, are there any projects that you're working on that's in the pipeline that you kind of want to call attention to?
I mean, nothing crazy. I think Luftwerk has some new stuff coming. So we had a brand new package design, which is really exciting because they turned out amazing.
Yeah.
So there's that. There's working on my new 2 slimlines. They're coming up, and they will actually have a fixed axle bearing option that's going to come with it.
That's really interesting. So
I feel like that's going to be like the most expensive fixed axle yo-yo in the world.
Definitely. But you know what? How would that mechanism work? Is it something that locks the bearing in place so it plays like a fixed axle, or?
No, it's actually a collar. It's a custom machine collar that replaces the bearing itself. So if you think of a half spec, it's the same spec as a half spec bearing, but it's all a billet. It's a billet CNC machine collar.
I see.
Yeah, so it just replaces it, and I was kind of skeptical if it would work, and then I got it made and threw one in there. I was like, dang, this is a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
I got to shoot the moons and stuff with half spec. And the greatest part is that I'm planning to package them and sell them. Kind of like individually in the future. So if anyone has any other yo-yo that can fit a half spec bearing, for example, like a Sherpa, or I don't know what other yo-yos can fit half specs, like any slim lines, they can pop one in there and then it'll be fixed axle. and it should be pretty cheap. It should be like $10 or $15, but they're all like custom machined, so they're a little bit expensive, but it's nice.
That's the fun, right?
I know, it's awesome. It's like, I don't know why no one else had done it. It'd be really cool to do like a wood one as well, but I figured that because like the yo-yo is staying concentric with that bearing, it should be at least a little bit a little bit precisely done.
So
those are the two things in my pipeline. I have so the two slim lines that are, I think it'd be released like sometime next week or the week after, and then after that I'm gonna go full competition mode. I'm gonna try to do another bimetal, which is gonna be freaking sick.
I'm very looking forward to that.
It's gonna be crazy. I don't know. Oh man, because bimetals on titanium have been nightmares for me, like absolute nightmares. So, but it's something I really want to do. So, I'm gonna work on that. There's that. There's gonna be a bimetal and a non-bimetal option. So it's gonna be, I guess, similar to like what we did with the Sylvia, or not Sylvia, the Fulvia. Yeah. But it's going to be, slightly tweaked. I think it's going to be like a better version of it, or maybe not better. I'd say different version. Sure.
Yeah.
And then after that, I have another special project that I'm not going to mention.
That is a super secret project. Maybe for next time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
gotta save something for the.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Okay. Well, if anyone's listening to this,
I really want to do like another plastic, like I really wanted to do a 000 out of Delrin.
Ooh, that would have been really interesting.
Yeah, but I don't know how like people react to it, or like how I would like. That's one of those projects. It's like, I want one. I don't know if anyone else would, but it's just a different market, right? Like
I honestly feel as if yo-yoing is a niche, right? And when you design yo-yos that you want that aren't ultimately there, they really kind of like, maybe it won't resonate like, about like, I don't know how many people in the yo-yoing world, maybe like the 2,000, the 250,000 people that are in yo-yoing, it might resonate with like, 5 or 10%, but out of the 10% it does resonate with, they're like super on board and will like endorse that thing with like wholeheartedly. So I'm always, my philosophy is make something you would buy and then let word of mouth do the rest.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. It's still scary though. Like I'm always on the fence with stuff, because it's like, that's a project that's again very much for me. And I mean, not to say that none of the other ones are. Like, I think in the entire Luftwerk brand is a lot of it for me. I just love Titanium Yoyos. Like, that's all I throw now. So, but no, I just miss designing plastics and working with kind of like that can be sold to more people, right? Because I think Luftwerk, a lot of people know about the brand. A lot of people, maybe they've thrown my yo-yos, but there's only a very small portion of people that actually buy them and have a chance to be able to spend $300 on a titanium yo-yo, right?
Yeah.
That's a very small market. And the thing I loved about Skyva was that, like, it affected so many people. Like it was much more impactful to the yo-yo community than making titanium yo-yos, where I'm targeting maybe like 5% of the community or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why I want to do something like a plastic 000 would be so sweet.
Yeah, that would be really sick.
I'll see what happens. That's way further down the line.
If that does go down, I'll be one of those people camping on your site and
I'll send you one, man. I'll send. No worries.
That's sick. All right. So if anyone in the yo-yo community wants to know more about you or wants to contact you directly, where are the best places to find you or to get in contact?
Probably social media, Luftwerk.
Luftwerk?
We have an Instagram page, just at Luftwerk for everything that's Luftwerk, at Jeffrey Pang 911 for anything that's me. So, those are the only two handles I really use.
Yeah.
So,
out of curiosity, where did the 911 come from? Is that like your birthday or?
No, that's my dream car.
Oh, I see.
So that was like my childhood dream car, which I actually was lucky enough to pick one up 2 years ago. The old one. I'm restoring it, so it's really old.
Okay.
It's a 74 911. So I finally made that dream come true. But people that know me, that's OG. Since like 2004, I've had that username. I think I was like 15 or 16. I can't remember how old I was. But
And it's just
really
stuck.
young. That was my first username. So
yeah.
Still hanging on to it.
Sweet. Well, I mean, I guess we could talk for hours more, and I'd have like a million questions to ask you, like around, video editing and, branding and like social and like, basically what you're doing with Reddit and all that. But I guess we'll save that for another time, another day.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for agreeing to go on the show with me as my very first podcast guest, and everything you did with the variant as well. So I'm super excited to be finally working with you. It's surreal to me that, I started yo-yoing in around 2009, and, I had no idea what I was doing, but, there was your channel, and I think, JP09 and a lot of those other videos were like stuff I'd play over and over again and try and break down.
Wow, that's embarrassing for me.
But, someone had to watch it, and I was there I think you taught me how to do Asian pops as well, so...
That's awesome. That's good to hear, though.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Best of luck with the podcast stuff. Honestly, it's really cool to see other people like really push the yo-yoing community and be involved and stuff, right? Like my life has been so insane with new job, new everything. Like, I feel like I've kind of dropped out of the community a bit, and like I need to. That's why I want to start designing stuff that's like more in tune, or like more that hits more people, right? like a Delrin or a plastic or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Or people can be connected with, and just go to more contests or whatever. But life is just like that. So absolute pleasure, man.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the show. Awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Hope you guys enjoyed that. So I guess a final closing statement. If you guys want to know more about the variant, the project that me and Jeff ultimately worked on together, you can go ahead, check that out. It's on sale basically everywhere. So if you guys just want a killer plastic yo-yo that is a bit more competition driven than the Skyva, you guys can go ahead, check that out. And just regarding everything else on the podcast, how did I do? Did you guys like me as a host? Did I ask any dumb questions? Anything I can improve on? And how'd you like the podcast? Do you guys want Jeff on again? Was there anything you wanted further clarification on? I definitely enjoyed this conversation. It's something I refer back to, and there's definitely more things that I can learn from Jeff, and that we can all learn from Jeff. But I think this was a good starting point to lay the groundwork. So yeah, if you guys are listening to this on iTunes or Spotify, could you guys leave a review? That would be awesome. And if you're just watching on the YouTube video, maybe leave a comment and just any feedback on how we can do this better. So yeah, that's it from me. See you guys next time.